warning, this one involves a minor. It's a little bit more serious in nature. Quite frankly, it's gonna piss you off. Okay, so I did surveillance on this guy for like a workers' comp case, right? Pretty routine surveillance. Well, I usually do like a pre-investigation just to kind of get as much info as possible before I go do surveillance on anyone, right? Well, anywho, I can see by like social media and other means that this dude is a little bit crazy town. You know, just a little like, woohoo, I don't think anything of it. Just go out and mind his business like they pay me to do, right? Well, another thing I saw when I was looking into him was that he's got a custody case going. He's trying to get his son. Well, this guy doesn't have a car, so he'd walk everywhere that he goes, right? Walk to the store, which is like down at the end of his neighborhood or whatever. And he would often stop for like several minutes at a time. He'd be making these phone calls. You could never really hear exactly what he was saying, but you could hear him yelling like angrily. And it was like 5 or 6 times a day he would go on these walks, make these calls and scream at the person on the other end of the phone, or at the phone, I don't know. But then I realized that there were several times that he was talking like screaming at someone, but also not, because he wasn't holding his phone. His phone would be like in his pocket. But homeboy was having like entire ass conversations and responding to like nobody. Dude is a little bit batty, okay? And there was a couple times upon his walk when he would see a kid like pass by like in a car or something. Like if he saw a kid on a bike, and he'd wave at the kid like this. Like one could argue he's just being silly, but after hearing this guy having like whole ass conversations with himself, I don't think so. He's out here all willy-nilly waving at kids like a creeper. Well, the store he would walk to was like 5 or 6 minute walk maybe. But at one point he stops along the way. He pees like into a bush, right? And he pees for a really long time. I mean, honestly, like an excessive amount of time. I mean, like, listen, fella, you shake it more than twice, you're playing with it. Am I right? Well, I'm following behind him like in my car. So I move up a little bit. You can see that he's looking over at like this house, or at least in the direction of this house. And I'm like, okay, this is creepy. Listen, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, you know what I'm saying? This guy's 100% giving crazy creeper vibes. I'm not into it. Well, then he would continue his journey to the store and then back home and repeat over several days, yelling into the phone, sometimes yelling not at the phone or anyone. Anywho, each day after surveillance, I would update my client and I would tell them, don't trust this guy. Something's wrong. So the workers' comp people, they don't care about child custody and domestic cases and stuff like that, right? Their only real concern is, do I have to pay this guy $1 bazillion or no? But for me personally, I feel like I was gonna do the right thing by saying something. So I did repeatedly. Like this guy would sit outside of his house. Anytime there would be like a child in sight or whatever, he would look real creepily at him, right? He'd do the wave. Now listen, I even told my client, this guy's going through a custody thing, trying to get custody or visitation with his 3-year-old son. And this fellow's crazy as a bed bug. Listen, you know what I'm talking about. Creepy vibes, the waving, the hand in the pants, shaking more than twice you're playing with it. Here's the couple problems that I face. I'm bound by certain laws, so I just can't go share all willy-nilly this client's business, right? Number 1, not on a gut feeling. Number 2, not on information that really doesn't pertain to the case I'm working. And number 3, quite frankly, I'm Paul Blart, mall cop, observe and report. I'm not qualified to determine if someone's crazy, right? Or determine the level of fit they are to be a parent, but also don't take no damn rocket surgeon, right? So anyways, I finished the budget on the case. I wrote repeatedly in my surveillance report, a little bit more than I really should or would typically. Talks to himself in a concerning way, has screaming matches with himself. This fella was like a few fries short of a Happy Meal, you know what I'm saying? It was just weird. I turned my case in, right? And I'm monitoring the baby mama's social media, and she's posting how she feels unsafe. She wants to protect her son, asking everyone for resources, help. She kept saying he's gonna hurt him. He's gonna hurt him. And in the comments on her stuff, people would reply, they'd be like, oh, well, that's his dad. He deserves to be with his son. And she's publicly declaring out loud, he's gonna hurt him. He's making threats of violence. And meanwhile, I call my client repeatedly. And I'm like, hey, remember that case I worked where I told you the guy was really, really crazy? The baby mama thinks that the judge is gonna give him custody and she's really scared. And during my surveillance, he was acting crazy. I told him about how he stopped to pee, but he was taking too long, so I think he was whipping his putt. As a PI, you're not supposed to assume, and I didn't catch it on video, but y'all, don't take a rocket surgeon. It just don't. I'm sorry, but it don't. But you couldn't really prove it, so I asked permission from my client. Can I go to the judge regarding this hearing and present my surveillance video as testimony, or at least just show the judge how crazy this fella's acting, right? Client says, listen, that has nothing to do with us. We don't want to get involved. That doesn't prove anything. But in not so many words, you're just a PI. You're not qualified to make those determinations. And quite honestly, it would embarrass us if the subject finds out we did surveillance on him. But I mean, in my mind, let's just say something to the judge. Let the judge determine, right? At least? No? Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, fine. It's fine. Whatever. He's right. I'm not qualified. He's absolutely right. I let it go. There's nothing I can do. I did everything that I could to try and get that client to let me talk to the judge. About 6 months later, find out on the baby mama social media, the judge not only gave this man visitation, but joint 50-50 custody while in his care. That man killed his baby, got caught exposing himself to one of the little boys in the neighborhood. And then another time, on a separate incident, someone called the cops on him for touching himself, like out in public. And the cops came and told him to go home. I want to know what the insurance company asked. If they can go ahead and settle the case out of court. But there's nothing you can do on a gut instinct, right? That's why I always say, trust your femtuition every time.